хорошее время жилось.
Ничего с 96-го года не изменилось. Тоже сквозь строй, те же стенки.
This film actually has to be understood in a global context, which is that authoritarianism is on the rise in all different parts of the world. I can think of 3 or 4 films from all over the world that are documenting a similar process that have documented a similar process of repression. And we in this country ourselves are struggling with how strong or fragile our own democracy is.
Art cannot change the history, but art can influence the future. And these people doing it.
I am a filmmaker, and I would like to ask some questions about the filmmaking, because it's very important, I think, to understand that documentary film is a subtle craft when it is done well. And I want to ask some questions about storytelling. I am struck and very admiring of the fact, not just what is in the film, but what is not in this film. There are very few explanations. There are no title cards, almost, no, explanatory, no explanations. Very few, if you notice, there are almost no interviews. There are moments of interview, but very, very few. And I want to ask you about the decision of what you did not do.
Thank you for your eyes. Indeed, it was an observation documentary, and it was very important for me that it will be not an informational film. Because kino, it's not about information. Kino is about atmosphere. Фильмы не для детей, фильмы проживают.
Yeah, you live through movies.
Speak to President.
I'm sorry, yeah. You live through movies.
People don't see films, people live films. And for me it was very important to keep the balance. Not to do person kaput with hard footage. Because all of us, Belarusian people, West European, West US people have information about the Belarus and have seen the massacre footage. And it was important for me to keep this balance in the film, to give so much as possible that people will
feel it,
and to give person a possibility to live, yeah? Not to be не быть забитым материалом, как глядаш не был забитым материалом.
Not for the audience not to be
killed
Oh, just killed by the material?
To be oppressed by
Yeah,
the
because there are some people in Belarus who are in Lithuania right now. They were in the prison, and they could not see the film. They're staying and saying, "Sorry, I cannot." Yeah, and it was quite important. And I see that you understand what it means that you cannot put in your film all topics.
Right.
Yeah, you have to do a selection of your focus. Yeah?
Yes.
And for me, it was important to keep this transformation from theater, from forbidden underground level, and this transformation on the street, because these guys from the theater working with sense,
With instinct, with
sense.
sense.
Yeah, they're working with topics that are forbidden in this country,
Yes.
and they're working is more than 70 years. On my opinion, art cannot change the future, but art can influence. Art cannot change the history, but art can influence the future. And these people doing it, Dennis Parallel and Marina.
So that was my next question, is that you end the film not with, you're not in the streets where you end the film. You're in theater. And I think for Americans, maybe we don't understand how big a presence theater is in Eastern European art. And tell me about your decision to end not with, I mean, everybody, first of all, yes, we know the broad strokes of what happened, but the normal thing would not be to end in theater. The normal thing would be to end in the streets. And tell me about that decision to end with theater.
It was my decision because the story has no end, has no final. And it's clear that you cannot, because it's documentary, it's a part of people's lives. Yeah? And you cannot create a fiction what's actually not happened right now. Yeah?
Right.
And for me, this final, коли у автора ламається лог, і не може написати книгу.
Yeah, when the author has a pencil broken down and he cannot write a book.
This is the reason why this final so abrupt, yeah? Abrupt,
Right.
because there are no end.
There is no end.
And we are Belarusians have a marathon. And we
Belarusians have what?
marathon.
Marathon.
And we have to come to the final.
Right.
But this is about next film.
And about the next thing. Okay, one more question film-wise, which is, I don't know the situation in Belarus well, but the woman who was the candidate, whose name I'm going to mispronounce, help me.
Svetlana Tikhanovskaya.
Okay. I thought I saw some references, hidden references to her in the film. I wondered even at the end, when the woman is talking about her husband who is dead, in this case murdered, but in her case imprisoned, or when the woman in the middle of the film says, "I'm just an ordinary woman," I wondered whether you were trying to evoke the current situation with the woman who was the candidate in 2020.
Actually, it was my decision not to have any politician in the film.
No, I mean, were you referencing, were you evoking, were you hinting at a connection by having the woman talk about her husband being in prison, and the other woman being asked to, she just, when she's protesting in the middle of the film, she says, "I'm just an ordinary woman," and that seems to me a line that the candidate has also used.
Actually not.
Not?
Actually
Great.
not. The reason is that in Belarus, to be really honest, only Frauen have a power. And clever men understand it and allow Frauen to be on the power. But to be honest, in this country, Білорусь тільки жінки керують.
Belarus is reigned by women.
Really?
Yes, no, clearly this
It's
revolution
true.
has been led. Yes.
Not because revolution,
Yes.
the whole time.
Well, well, that's a larger subject, and I think I'm probably not qualified to explore it. Were you were one of the cinematographers? You were one of the camera people.
No, it was Tanya Horicik. She was cinematographer.
But how many when the crowds were out in the street? How many camera people, not directors, not sound, not anything? How many camera people did you have in the street? How many cinematographers? One.
Tanya Horicik.
Wow. Let's hear it for her. Wow. I assume at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 cameras. And was she ever in danger?
Sure. We cannot allow to have almost 2 cameramen.
We should be really like invisible.
Barricadely.
There were only 2 of us, and I was trying to distract the police and all the military men.
Wow.
We have plan. Yeah? We have plan. With Tanya. Часто я включал дурку перед
Very often I played a fool just to distract people.
Maybe it wasn't so difficult, no?
main role not to watch in eyes. And this is what I mean.
Okay, that's what I mean, like playing a fool. I would stand, just not look into the eyes, and she would just
roll.
keep shooting.
Well, I think the title "Courage" certainly applies to the dissident, the theater people, but I think it also applies to the to the filmmaking process itself. And on that note, I would like to open up and have a few questions, and then maybe we will continue this conversation. Is there any? And if you ask a question, please speak loudly, and you can speak in Russian, Belarusian, English, whatever you want, but speak loudly. Please.
Okay, I have a question about safety and about like this ethical thing when in contemporary Belarus, especially when you document, you always threaten somebody's safety. Especially now when everybody gets arrested and there are faces of people, and so it's a very difficult ethical decision for a documentary filmmaker to choose if you like either you show these people or you don't. And when I've been watching it, I was like, okay, like most of the people I see there are already in prison or they are already somewhere in Europe, but some of them are probably still in Minsk. So how did you solve this like ethical question for yourself?
I'm going to stop you. Make sure that did you understand the question?
Yes. Yeah. That's the reason why Belarus not why this film will not shown in Belarus. Yeah, actually.
Hopefully they won't see it because they by the government.
They said it.
Ah,
I know. There are some important protagonists that were asked, yeah? Victor, Amon, and other people. Я их запитал, отримав дозвол.
I asked them and asked for their permission.
Yeah. As Belinara selected the film, it was clear that the film will have a long festival life and it will be a visible film. And all of these people say, I stand behind the film and I want that all these topics will be in film. So there's only one, unfortunately not so good story. It's regarding the music from Victor Tsoi, Перемен, changes. I was very naive to write, as typical Belarusian, to write a tone of Victor Tsoi, the owner of this lead right now. And I explained him whole story, explained that film, there is this song in the film, during the Dennis drive the car on the nights of August, and this sound is very important for this film. As for the whole August 2020, if people were there, they can understand me. And the son of Victor Tsoi said to me, I'm not allowed to use this song in this film because I don't want that this song will have a parallel with revolution in Belarus. only one. And then I really Googled who is this Alexander Tsoi. I understood that he writes for Russia Today, and I was so naive to be so honest. Yeah.
So you went ahead and used it anyway?
Yeah, I found other.
Oh.
And I think nobody can recognize this other song. And it's a song from Aerospace.
Venezuela.
Venezuela, yes.
Great choice.
Yes, Mira Bank.
I'm going to take this off so you can hear me. Toward the end, the actor who plays the husband is speaking on the computer to someone who says, "What is the plan, and how will we?" So my question is, what would that plan be? How could people help them in this situation? How would that work? I respect that you can't show that in the film, but as somebody who cares about these people a lot by the end of the film, I wonder if you can talk about that.
First, I want to make sure, did everybody hear the question, which is, when, is it Pavel? When Pavel is listening and saying, what's the plan B, and a voice is saying to them that we'll be able to get them out of the country and we can go through the border in Lithuania and Poland. Was that real? Were they protected at that moment? Were they going to be okay?
What could anyone do?
Could anyone help them? Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, Denis, Pavel, and Marina are in exile in Kiev right now.
So that was after the fact, that question.
She's saying, were they still in Belarus when that conversation was happening?
Yeah, sure. He was in Belarus, and it was conversation with the theater director of Belarus Free Theatre, Nikolai Halezin. He was in London at this moment, and there are no plan B for theater, to be honest. And the problem was that nobody couldn't understand in this moment what's going on. And then it was February 2021. Pavel and Denis has also a musician band, quite famous in Belarus, the Broken Hearts of One Guy called. And during one concert, on the 13th of February, it was night of St. Valentine's Day, some guests come from Leeds, and they arrested the whole audience. I think it was the same amount people of we today. It was 70-80%. The whole band, projectionists, you can imagine, all staff from theatre was arrested, and they were arrested to the jail. And 15 days after that, Pavel and Denis realized that they cannot continue their musician career, and they decided to come to Kiev. And after Ryanair kidnapping in May 2021, Marina wrote me SMS 10 minutes before they had a flight from Minsk to Kiev, the last flight before sanction coming, and say, Alexei, I cannot live in feeling of fear and scare, and I will fly with my husband and my child to Kiev. This means that all three of them decided themselves to come to Kiev, and part of troupe of Belarus Free Theatre was in Minsk at this time. But last month, the last part of the theatre also moved to exile, and right now they are in London having one theatrical show, and then will move also to Kiev and then to Warsaw. This means that these guys that working so courageous 70 years could not.
It's over.
It's over. It means how repression is at this moment strong, that these courageous people are not able to continue their work.
Thank you so much for an amazing film, and it's really impressive to see this very, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience saw this footage from the part that was seen it on the big screen. Definitely creates a very strong impression. But my question actually was, to
piggyback a little bit on Tatiana's question about the ethical aspect of like in the nowadays context what's happening in Belarus. I understood that you have the like agreement with all the protagonists of the film and their consent and that they are now like escape the country safely. But there are a lot of like close shots of all the people in the protests and you get the consent from all, like I assume that's impossible. And do you, like as a filmmaker, ethically think it's justified to like spotlight the attention to these people to risk probably their safety in the contemporary, like in order for like the greater good for the change? Or how do you answer as a filmmaker this very, I assume it's a difficult dilemma.
Can I before Aliaksei answers it, I want to say that this is one of the great problems in documentary film, and there are guidelines that we use, and one of them is that if somebody has decided to go out into the street and make their own person public, they are displaying themselves publicly, then the general rule, even in a difficult situation like this, clearly those people who have come out onto the street, some of them have chosen to wear a mask, in which case their identity is hidden, and others have not. And we respect the individual decision of the person who's come out onto the street. That would be my answer. Now, obviously, you may have another one, but that would be mine.
I actually agree with you. It's not possible to get an agreement from 400,000 people. And it's a documentary. It's observation. It's not a fiction. I take responsibility, and the plan, actually the first plan was to show this film online for Belarusian, because hundreds of Belarusians write me every day, how is it possible to watch this film? For sure, I wanted to show this film, but I can't. The plan was to show this film online for the anniversary of 9th of August 2021. And we have prepared the platform for it only one day to show this film in Belarus. But after the conversation with Tanya, with some part of the team there in Belarus right now, I decided not to do it. Because every person understands that Gubasik, Amon, all these people will arrest all these people from the team. And it's about responsibility. I cannot lose the trust of 5 people from my film team, not to speak about the thousands of demonstrations, and to take risk and show this film. And it's my decision. I will not show this film in Belarus.
This film actually has to be understood in a global context, which is that authoritarianism is on the rise in all different parts of the world. I can think of 3 or 4 films from all over the world that are documenting a similar process that have documented a similar process of repression. And we in this country ourselves are struggling with how strong or fragile our own democracy is. And I think that one of the things that can be done is Belarus can be discussed in a broader context, which is to say how energetic are the Western nations going to be in defending and promoting democracy within their own homes and within, because the authoritarian nations are clearly working together and supporting each other, and one of the not stated but nonetheless visible parts of this film is that at some point, and you can feel Pavel's fear at the end when he's at the computer. He's much more afraid than he was at the beginning of the film, and that doesn't just have to do with the Belarus, but it has to do obviously with the Soviets and the FSB and all sorts of very sophisticated help that regime is getting from other authoritarians all around the world. And so I think one of the things Belarusians can do is really assert their part in a global drama of which we are all, and that includes the United States, very much a part. And on that somber but nonetheless important note, I think we have to get the hell out of this theater because they have another screening. But I thank you really all for coming, and I'm so pleased we were able to have this conversation. Thank you.